Welcome to Growing Pains, a podcast of the Sumner County Republican Freedom Caucus. I'm your host, Deanne DeWitt, and today we've got a quippy little name. Quippy, that's a good word to introduce an episode. This is called Matt Shoaf Makes Everyone Mad. Welcome, Matt Shoaf.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
We'll see if you can make me mad, too.
Probably can.
You probably could. I'm not counting on it, though. I think we can find plenty of productive, constructive things to talk about.
We'll try.
So Matt Shoaf, he is county commissioner. He's been county commissioner for 4 years. You're on the ballot in August. You have a opponent, I believe.
I have an opponent. Yes.
Shall not be named.
I mean, I don't mind naming somebody. I think the person's name is Phil Barnes. Everybody.
You haven't met him yet?
I think I've seen him once. I don't know that I've met him.
I think Phil's running.
Yeah, he's running for a couple things. He's running for county commission and state rep. So I ran into William Slater and I was like, hey, I think we have the same opponent. So anyway,
All
but
right.
no,
So you got an opponent?
I haven't met him. Yeah. So
I want to turn this just a little bit that
here we
way.
go.
Make sure we, get all the audio. So that'll be fun.
I think there's a forum. I think there's a forum I intend to go to. So I might see him there. It's the League of Women Voters. I think is later.
They're
this month.
hosting one?
Yeah, I think it's later this month.
Good.
Alan
Okay.
Lancaster turned me on to it, so I'm planning on going, assuming I can make it.
I'm glad to know about that. I haven't heard yet. I do think candidate forums are really helpful because local elections are tough to get to know your candidates. And so it's good when you have an opportunity at least. All right, let me back it up though. So you have been on the county commission, you're chair of the budget committee. You've been chair all 4 years, 3 years?
4 years.
All 4 years.
4 years.
Your favorite job ever.
Uh,
Okay.
I did not know what I was getting myself into on that one.
Let's talk about what brought you to Sumner County. What brought you to the county commission? You
Well,
cover both of those.
Yeah, so those are two different stories. So I'm from Tennessee, or I was born in Tennessee. I grew up in Eastern Arkansas, but I'm from the area. My parents split up, and so I moved to Eastern Arkansas when I was a kid, because that's where my mom's family was from. But anyway, I still claim Tennessee, and I claim both states. But I had left the military and spent some time working as a dirty government contractor in D.C. And I was really at the time, my wife and I, we were both working a lot, and we were both in school. And then we got pregnant, and it was like, man, this is like too much. So around, really, it was like no sleep. And 2000, that was around 2014. So 2015, I was kind of on the hunt for something different. I didn't know quite what, and a job offer from Nashville kind of fell in my lap, and it was totally different than what I had been doing. But I was kind of like, I contacted him and went to visit him down in Nashville. I flew down from DC and was like, well, look, I've never done anything like this before, but it was a healthcare tech startup. But if you guys will take a risk on me, I'll take a risk on y'all, and we did. And so I moved here and was hunting around the area for a place to live, and we searched all over. We looked in Nashville, and we looked, and I was pretty sure we were going to go there, but really we were looking, I think, at Sumner, Williamson, and Wilson, and we settled on Sumner, and I've been happy here ever since. So
Yeah. Well, good. You're not alone. There's certainly been plenty of transplants that have found their way here.
yeah,
and-
no, I'm not a total transplant though. I'm kind of like coming back.
Coming
So
But when you have to re-interview the counties, or not interview, but
Yeah.
really figure out what fits for you and your family, and that's that's a lot of work. That's actually a pretty stressful situation too, trying to figure out where everybody fits and
well,
thrive.
I wanted to be wherever we landed. I wanted to stay, right, at least until my kids were kind of
Through high school.
Yeah, through high school, and like I didn't want to, but having been in the military, I had seen a lot of kids grow up and move, and that's got its benefits too, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I wanted to be like kind of dig in a spot. So that was the plan.
What was important to your family then at that point, as far as a community that you could see yourself?
I don't think we put that much thought into it. It was really like, hey, what's the cost of the house, and is is it like as long as the crime was good and, it was a reasonably close to where I worked and the schools were good and we had at that,
Yeah.
it wasn't like, I mean, it was more of kind of a quick calculus and we were, I was fast trying to find a house. So, I was looking at places several over. So I can't say that I did like this spreadsheet analysis and, and we just kind of picked one and rolled with it.
Got it. But good public
Oh,
schools.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
a good
it's
spot. I mean, I've still got that house. My friend Matt Campbell, I have it as a rental house now, and my friend Matt Campbell, who's also running for a commission seat, he was just out working on that house. I intend to keep it because that was the first house that like we moved in here, and so my
mhm.
kids, at least my daughter, who's older, she remembers it. My son might have been a little bit young, but anyway, gonna
Yeah.
keep it.
That's
So
special.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great. But what we moved here in 2011, and
okay.
there were 2 things that were important to us. It was great public school system, and my husband wanted to retire on a golf course someday.
Oh, I
And
don't
so
golf, so I did that wasn't in my
wasn't
calculus.
it? Well, I did have a very elaborate spreadsheet, and I had a
Did
weighted
you?
average for,
Are you
everything from
serious?
natural disasters to sports
Oh,
teams
wow.
and cultural and
Wow, okay.
schools
Yeah, I
and,
did not do that.
it was I
Wow.
can't find it either. I think it
Okay,
got
yeah, I
lost
didn't
in
do that.
an
Didn't do that.
old computer that died, but it was pretty impressive, actually. We interviewed I say interviewed, that's how I thought of it. We went to a few cities, Charlotte, actually Atlanta, because my Al traveled pretty much every week at the time,
Yep.
and Nashville, so it had to have a good airport, but it really came down to those 2 things, great public schools, and then 2011 was a pretty good for us time to move.
Yep.
Lost what we had invested in our house in Ohio, but,
Mm.
we were able to get into a house at a pretty good deal in
Yeah, and in
2011.
retrospect, it was a great deal,
Yeah.
right? Like, I remember thinking I was paying too much for a house here, and, like, I mean, it all kinda depends on what your point of reference is, but looking back, I'm like, "Man, there's a reason I'm keeping that house."
Yeah,
So
totally. Alright, so the second question I asked you, what made you decide to
so
run for
well,
office?
so I'd mentioned earlier that my opponent was running for 2 offices. I had, um I was very unhappy with decision making at various levels over COVID. Extremely unhappy about it. And literally, I had several friends of mine and we kind of that we knew each other from different things, right? We didn't know each other politically, and I was like, and I was so pissed off about it. And I don't know if you're gonna bleep that or whatever, but it was,
Yeah.
but it was, I was not happy about it. And we were like, well, what are we gonna do? And I was like, I don't know. Well, do we want to run for office? And so my original thought was that a couple of us were going to run for state rep seats. And then, the state legislature finally they started ratcheting back some of the shutdowns and they started doing what I believe to be kind of the right thing. And so I was like, well, I don't intend to run for state rep anymore. And so I kind of had backed off of it a little bit, and but we in that time, I I and others had done a lot of networking together with a bunch of other people who, was the and I see, I'll talk about this stuff openly, like, at the time, the antithesis of what became the Freedom Caucus, which was the SCCR, and, everybody thinks of that the SCCR as being this big boogeyman. It really was not. It was just a bunch of people who were dissatisfied with various things that their government was doing, which is normal and American. Um,
100%.
and
Yeah.
and so I the the SCCR and just other people said, "Well, you should run for county commission." And so I looked into it and I said, "Okay, I'll run for county commission." And so I did it. And and I think this is normal, right? I think people get involved when you're unhappy, right? We talk a lot about people, we say, hey, only 12 to 14% of people vote, and that's so terrible. And I'm not sure it is terrible. Like, if people aren't voting, I mean, that's also a vote, right? That means that they're saying, well, it's one of two things.
Disenfranchised,
Well,
frustrated.
maybe they're disenfranchised, or maybe they're good with the way it is. Maybe they're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going, my life is good enough. I'm not upset. That was me. I was not I've voted, but I was not somebody who was particularly engaged in all the primary processes, not nearly as engaged as I am now, and it was not because I was disenfranchised, it was because, like, I was fine,
Content.
I was content, and so
Yeah.
I might have a little bit of a different opinion on I don't I guess I'll say it this way, I don't chastise people if they don't vote. That's your choice, and I don't if I do think it is a duty, but I also am not here to preach down to people if they choose not to or shame them. But anyway, but I do think what happens when people get upset about a thing, whatever that happens to be, I think the Freedom Caucus itself was a reaction to things that the commission that had been kind of backed by the SCCR was they weren't happy with, and so they did their thing. And
You're right.
and this is normal, right? Like this is not evil on any side. This is like how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to like it, this is
Affect
the system.
change.
Yeah, well,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
system that was designed at all levels in order to prevent uh, bloodshed, right? Like that's what it was designed to do. You're designed to have an outlet for your grievances in a legitimate way without having to, take up arms. I mean, really, that's how it.
It's a good
So
summary.
I don't
Yeah.
see this. I don't see any of this kind of. I guess we talk a lot about the fighting back and forth in Sumner County. I'm happy to talk about that. I don't see it all being evil. I see it as like
Difference of opinions.
we're just doing what we're
Mhm.
supposed to do. Anyway,
We could drill down into that
we can
more,
drill down into it if you
but
want.
it's a good summary to kind of start at that point. What surprises you now that you've been there 4 years? What surprises you the most about what you thought maybe you were stepping into and what you've experienced?
Well, I'm really happy I did it. But not for the reasons I'm doing it now. I think I'm doing this again. If the people will have me. Um, and the reason I'm doing it the second time is different than the reason I'm doing it the first time. I learned a lot. Like I made the kind of quip about the the budget before, and that like I didn't know what I was signing myself up for, and that's very true. But y- you know, I think everybody who's on the commission should do at least 1 year in that committee.
On that budget committee. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did it for a couple
Yep.
years. You don't I did not know you don't know what you don't know. And you have an idea. I mean, I'd actually studied the budget a little bit going into running, but until you kind of get in and do it. So I learned an immense amount about how county and local and state government
Right.
works, right? Because there's a
Sure.
lot of back and forth there. So I'm very happy I did that. And I think, I'm going to answer your question maybe a little different than the way you asked it. What I got out of it was different than what I expected to get out of it. And what I got out of it was what the gift that I got out of it was learning this body of knowledge that I would not have ever signed myself up to learn before. Right? Like there's all this machinery that you just kind of take for granted, right? Like
Right.
government does things that generally you should take for granted and probably should take for granted. You only notice the roads when there's a pothole, and you only
Right.
notice the police when they're there at your door or they're giving you a ticket, right? But these are things that like
They should
this
work
yeah,
seamlessly
these are the
and
machines that deliver civilization to our doorstep.
ooh, I like that
Yeah,
phrase.
there you go.
That's
So
have you used that before?
nope, just came
No?
up with
That
that.
just came
I just came up with it.
Okay, so if you would tell me just a little bit more about what has surprised you as you went further into looking at departmental budgets and looking at the full scope of Sumner County's budget, knowing it inside and out the way you do now. You had, most people have perceptions that there's a lot of waste in government accounts and government budgets.
I don't know that I had so when I came into it, I don't know that I mean, I probably made a couple digs at taking out the debt, the amount of debt that we had. I did not when I first reviewed the budgets before I ran, I didn't actually see a massive amount. I didn't see anything that I would call fraudulent. I did see some things that I disagreed with, right? Like you and I can disagree on the Comer barn, right?
Yep,
Like I disagreed with that. I cut a thing that was your thing, and we can disagree on
and we can disagree, right?
it. So I saw things that I disagreed with, but I don't know that I would not have considered that fraudulent. Um, the So I don't know that I had these huge surprises coming in. I think what I saw, I viewed this then like I view it. This is something that hasn't changed. I just view it as like good diligence in a balance sheet. Like it's the like running a P&L, and where are you going to put your, where are you going to put the resources
Prioritize.
that you
Yeah.
have? The difference, of course, being that you only have so many resources to pull from. I mean, if you need, i- in a business, you grow the business. And in government, the whole idea is to
Right.
not grow your revenue. So that makes the whole enterprise in terms of a budget difficult, especially when you have like these big inflationary periods, which we've had, we're going into the second one in 4 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that dodged your question, but that's the honest answer.
No, that's, I mean, honest answer is good. And when you look at, when you get to fully understand, you understood coming in, but a lot don't realize, how much of the budget is it's personnel.
It's
And
people.
so,
It's people.
and like you
That's
said,
right.
with when the inflation hits and now you are still responsible for those people to have make a livable wage to continue serving our county. It puts some pressures on
Well, we compete in a market, right? Like we compete in a market um for hot mix, for our when
for our
that's
roads.
gone up.
Yeah.
That has doubled since I've been on the budget committee. And the we also compete in a market for personnel.
Yeah.
We compete against uh,
Metro
Metro
Nashville.
Nashville, and Metro Nashville can pay more than us. Now, there is, I think, a premium for working here versus working in Metro Nashville, but that premium isn't
25.
forever.
Yeah.
It's not 30%. There is some amount where a family is going to do what I did when I moved to Nashville, right? It's like I'm going to take, I will take the hit in driving in order to get paid more, or I'll take a little bit less of a paycheck in order to stay up here. And you can't be totally out of whack with the market. And we don't drive that, right? Like we
Right.
don't, if we don't get to dictate what those rates are. It's everybody does that together in a market.
Yeah. Um, it this conversation is making me think of something we've talked about before, and there's a lot of things you legislate when you're elected, and one of the things that I think we could do better is I think there's some things that we could legislate that would allow us to govern better. And where I'm leading is we talked about
Yeah,
the
well,
tax rate.
oh yeah.
So, Tennessee, we have a way that says, your local legislative bodies need to recognize a revenue neutral tax rate, which we always do as part of the
Mhm.
assessment process, as property values are reassessed every 5 years now in Sumner County, and um, that never takes into account inflation,
It
and
doesn't.
it really sets up a pretty horrible situation for people that are trying to make it work.
Well, I'm glad. So this is a good conversation to kind of get into. And this is a little bit wonkish, but um, I have a love-hate relationship with the way we do the tax rate. Part of me, in principle, actually appreciates it because it keeps us honest, right? It
Mhm.
prevents the thrust of it is to prevent counties from baking in a non-transparent way tax increases. So I appreciate that, and in a way,
Right.
I appreciate it. But to your point, like when you've got 7, 8, 9% inflation, I mean, we don't even with the growth that we get from sales tax, which is kind of we might get a 0.5% a year, maybe. So everybody plays this game, and the cities play it too, where you just to keep even. And that doesn't include things like, look, we've added a lot of sheriff's officers. We've done that in the last few years, but we've needed to, I think. Um, but even if we weren't to do that, it's just a matter of time before just inflation will bite you, and you're kind of your back is against the wall. Now, our back isn't against the wall now. It wasn't when I took over, and it's been we've done a lot of kind of tightening, and our back isn't against the wall now, but there is some point in the future that like it'll it'll bite us. And here's the best way I used to describe that. We're not using $1932 now. But if we were revenue neutral at 1932, right? Like what would
Right.
that get us? And it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. It's just we happen to be in 2026. Um, I mean, I the other thing about the tax rate that I think is the way the state handles it, which I think is less talked about, is, and this was brought to my attention by Paige Brown, and I didn't think about it, but I did. I looked at the numbers on it, and she was right. The way the tax rate is set whenever you do a reappraisal, we reset what the, and there's a little more complicated in this, but basically you're reappraising what a home is. And so
Yeah.
a revenue neutral rate is adjusted back to the median, or excuse me, to the mean, right? So now think about what that means. Um if your house is above that, your tax rate is going to get reduced by a little bit. If your house is below that, then it's going to go up. And now what does that mean?
Yeah.
The reappraisal is by definition regressive. Every time we do a reappraisal, we are putting more tax on the backs of people who have less.
Less.
The $1.5, $2 million houses, they go down, and the $300,000 houses, they go up. So that's absolutely something I wish that the state would look at.
Yeah.
Does that? I mean,
It does make sense.
Yeah.
I think for those that are listening are kind of like, "What are you talking
Yeah,
about?"
I know this
It
is a
we're
very wonkish
we're pretty
conversation.
far in the weeds, but these are realities that at the end of the day, we want good governance, and we want to continue to, what did you say? Deliver the,
Yeah, you want to
s
deliver, you want to have the machine that delivers civilization to
to
your
your doorstep.
doorstep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I mean, that's that's what residents should expect, and, that's part of what, government is meant to accomplish. So, um, it just would be great if we can find ways to navigate some of these challenges that, are presented.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's ever a perfect way. I think even if the state made changes, like I think we'd end up having disagreements on exactly what those were. I think that we're kind of doing it right.
Yeah.
Like I think what we're doing here, like you and I have been on different camps, right? But we're having a cordial conversation.
Yeah.
This this is how you do it, right? And this is actually something else I wanted to bring up. And if it's okay if I pivot maybe a little bit,
Sure.
because I
Yeah. Let's
I
get out of the weeds.
no, yeah, no, I ran into this, right? Like I've run into this, and I've seen it happen a few times where there's this idea that, like, if you talk to somebody who's on the other side or in another camp, that somehow you are disloyal. And like I'm like, man, I'd have zero time or tolerance for that. And I've seen it a few times, and on all camps. I've seen it. Actually, I just saw it recently happen. In not even, it wasn't anything between the SCCR and Freedom Caucus. It didn't have anything to do with us. But I've seen these camps, and like, man, if Donald Trump can go to China and talk to Xi Jinping, I think I can talk to Deanne DeWitt. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I just, anybody who runs for office, if anybody listens to this, and I don't know who does, but if uh if because not because of you guys, because I'm sure I'm boring and mawkish, but if any the one thing I hope they would hear is, if you're running for office and somebody tells you that you shouldn't talk to somebody else, then you need to just tell them no, that you're going to talk to who you want to. And that goes for, doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but if you want to actually govern, like you said,
Yeah.
deliver good governance, then you got to be willing to talk to people you don't agree with.
Have
I just, and that's, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it's the most important thing.
Well, there's so many related thoughts that are going through my head. I totally agree that finding, um, that creating solutions is not it's not something you can do on your own and with just like-minded people. That doesn't deliver the best outcome.
Yeah, and we're not always going to get our way. Like,
No.
I mean, I didn't get my way on the very budget that I passed, right? Like, I wanted to put $10 million more toward debt service, and it may still come to pass, but the votes, there was I think Mark Harrison or Shannon Bergdorf maybe, or I forget who it was, but they said, "Hey, look, we might want to take this out and put this into capital, because how much are we really getting on the debt payoff?" And I get their argument, but, you know, I lost that vote. I wanted to go ahead and put that toward debt service. But I lost that vote. I wanted it to go that way, right? Like, but I still voted to pass the
The
budget.
budget.
I voted
Yeah.
to pass the budget even though I didn't get everything I wanted in the budget. Now, if there's something that, like, truly is against my core morals, yes, I'll vote against it, but, like, most of what we're doing in a budget is not that. And or in most votes, it's not that. So, you know, that's important too, like, the idea of, like, sometimes you don't get your way, and that's okay. You know the guy who helped me
Yeah.
get the budget over this time, you're not gonna believe it. If you go watch the votes, it's Jeremy Mansfield. He changed his vote, and I'm like, "Okay, there you go." So, there's some weird things that come from different directions. You'd be
Yeah.
interested.
Well, I I didn't know that, but,
Yeah, go
Eddie,
look at it.
I'm not that interested.
Okay. Alright,
So no
fair.
offense, no offense,
No, that's
but,
okay.
I believe you, and, you know, we all have different things that are motivating us through some of these, dilemmas and those challenges. A couple things I wanna mention. One,
Yeah, go for it.
we've talked about the fact that there are the Freedom Caucus and the Constitutional Republican group have been at odds. I you know, I'm an idealist. I believe that there's common ground. I can't wait for there to not be, these 2 factions that I think that there is a coming together that is one Republican Party in Sumner County, and, we've gotta have different ideas, but we don't need, this fragmented version of ourselves that are, bickering over things that, um, just take us away from doing good work. So that's just my hopefulness. I wanna talk about schools,
Oh, go for it. Yeah, yeah.
because I think the schools is such a significant portion of the budget. I think you have seen the importance, and you've been a good advocate for the schools budget. What do you see there now? What do you hope for the future of
Oh,
our school
man.
system?
So, this
That's a
is
big question, by
it's
the
a
way. I
big
do mean
question, and I'm gonna go from, like, high to low real quick because this ties into another discussion that you and I had talked about. We may or may not have time to talk about it, but it is I think we are in the middle of a rapid technological revolution. I mean, I think most people acknowledge that at this point. Probably started in the late '90s, and it's really picking up steam now with the the latest large language models and the dispersion of AI into everything that we're doing. But so I want to mention this because it sets the
Yeah,
tone for this comment that for the discussion of this tool. So we are in the midst of this thing, and the way I describe it um, is that, like, so I work with these tools every day. I'm gonna go from here and I'll be working with them on my for the rest of my afternoon, and I feel like, and they're extremely powerful. I mean, they're extremely powerful. They are world changing. Now we haven't got the finances of it quite right, the economics of it quite right, but it's gonna happen. But I feel like I've, like, gone north of the wall and I've seen the White Walkers, and, like, I'm trying to go back down to King's Landing and explain to people, like, "Hey, this is, like, real, but if you haven't if your hands aren't in it," like, I think
yeah,
people kind of acknowledge it, but, like, really seeing it
yeah.
is
Percentages are, yeah,
so
limited.
the reason I brought that up about this relevant to the schools is that, um, I'm gonna say something that is probably provocative, and then I'm gonna say something that's even more provocative. I am an advocate for our schools. I love our schools as part of the reason we come here. I also think the way we're doing schooling is obsolete because of what I just said. That was provocative, right? It doesn't mean that I think teachers are obsolete. It doesn't mean that I think that that education is obsolete. It means that I think the modality and the machinery, the way that we're delivering it, it was built for something that is 100 years, 110 years old at this point. And it was built for a kind of an economic paradigm that we just don't have anymore. It was built for factory
Absolutely.
work. And so I would say I think it's obsolete.
And that's something I've heard Scott Langford
Well, I
say
was about
in
to say
recent,
this
yeah.
was what is funny about this, and what's also really funny about the AI thing is I'm going to say two names who I think agree with my statement and also are some of the most forward-leaning people when it comes to AI and understanding what's happening because they're on very different camps. One is Scott Langford. He absolutely, he's not technically in the weeds, but he's a person who sees it,
Yeah.
and he, doing things like making the school more modular, which he talked about in this last budget. Not trying to build, big. behemoth schools, but instead kind of modularize, and I think that's very smart. And the innovation center being kind of a part of that to break off kind of key things instead of having to
Right.
like have those programs at every place. You instead kind of have them in one spot and rotate through it. I think those are smart, and I think he will acknowledge that. He said it. Look, school is the way we're doing is obsolete. The other person is Kurt Riley, who is like absolute. Kurt Riley is a very thoughtful person when it comes. A lot of people who are in the but most people won't know who Kurt Riley is, right?
Right.
But like a lot of people who are in these circles think of him as like this political operator, which he is, but he's a technically very capable person, and he's also been north of the wall, and he's seen it. And so like what's interesting, and because I've talked to both of these men, and they're both sharp, and they both kind of see what's coming, but they have very different, like, well, how do you deal with it, right? Like, I think if you talked with Kurt, he's like, well, it's obsolete. We should just, like we should just kind of phase it out. And I think that's hard to do, right? A school is kind of like a spine. You can't just pull it out.
Yep.
So anyway,
But there's knowledge there, and you're opening my eyes to something I wouldn't have predicted, but,
well, I mean,
that does make sense. I certainly know he is somebody who is very technically savvy, and so it makes sense that he's on that leading edge of understanding the future implications.
what I do, I mean, and this is, relevant to the schools, and we can come back to more specific things and maybe ask specific questions about the school, but more broadly, you mentioned this idea of coming together. I actually think there's always going to be some level of fighting, but what I would say is that if you've seen the White Walkers, like all the other stuff all the little politics in King's Landing really shouldn't matter. Like we've got something that is like civilization changing, and we need people to who are thinking about this to be willing to talk to each other and kind of think through it, because there are things like, here's one example is how do you adapt the schools for it? Like I don't think you're going to just I don't think we're gonna have no schools, right? Like, I mean, do I
Yeah.
philosophically maybe agree with Kurt Riley that, "Hey, I can just learn whatever I want on the internet." Yeah, yes. But, like, the schools are
That's not the purpose of schools, yeah.
it's also it's just not the way it's gonna work, so there are some changes we can make, and how do we do it? But the other part of it is people if we are able to, we're riding on this wave, and if we can maybe just get a little bit ahead of it, there are some things we can do so that we're not playing catch up later. Everything from, do we want data centers? And if we want them, how do we want them? And if we don't, what are the implications of not doing them? And I don't want to do that in a reactionary way. The same thing, I don't want to do that in a reactionary way with like the schools. Okay, we have to change. Testing isn't working the way, like, as opposed to waiting for like the White Walkers to get on your doorstep, you're like, oh, okay, they are slow. They're zombies. Like they're out there. Let's plan for it a little bit. I hope that analogy is not too weird.
I was just thinking, I'm like, I wonder how many Game of Thrones enthusiasts are
Yeah.
listening and understand exactly where you're going. Some
Did you
probably
not
don't.
watch it?
No, I did.
Oh,
I
okay.
did. But I'm wondering, it I don't know what the percentages are, but I get it, and I do think it's a useful analogy, and I think that, we can't just bury our head in the sand
No,
and pretend it's not happening.
no,
And thankfully, we do have thought leaders that are around this community, and I think there's a chance that, that they can put their heads together on some of these things.
yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
Well, I would love to talk more about data centers and AI. I don't think we want this episode to go on for too
No, we
long and
don't.
get too far in the weeds, so we're gonna save some of that for another time. Um, Maybe I can do some quick questions for
Go
you,
for it.
just give you like a like
Go for
knee-jerk
it.
reaction. Um, I don't know if these are easy to do that though. What's Can you think of the most rewarding vote you've cast as a county commissioner? Other than getting rid of the Comer part?
Who else gonna do that?
Yeah, no, don't say
No, you got okay. No, that
Gosh.
actually wasn't that
I
rewarding of a vote.
know.
But I mean, it was. Anyway.
Anyway, we're not going there.
Every time I get that budget passed, I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it always comes down to the wire. I mean, we still have the school budget to get over, right? Like,
Right.
it has gone down to the wire every single time. It
One more
those are
long
the ones
meeting.
that I'm like, I'm I am those are the ones that are most meaningful to me because they're harder to get over the hump than you might you know,
Yeah.
but they're harder to get over the hump than you might guess.
Yeah, it's challenging for sure. What's the most misunderstood part of county government?
Well, there is a misunderstood, vote I cast, and
Okay.
it was about the water up in, Portland, and, you know, the idea here was, I've been criticized on this for like, "Oh, you didn't want people up in Portland to have water." I'm like, "That is not true." The I won't get down too much into details here, but as you know, the county has very limited ability to influence the growth of
The cities.
residential growth of a
Yeah.
city within the urban growth boundaries. You and I both know that our infrastructure does not everything from water to highways,
Roads. Yep.
roads, and our just EMS personnel. Like we're growing into stuff that was already baked in. And what I wanted to do was never to take, water from somebody. It was to say, "Hey, will you guys just say you're gonna put a moratorium, not on commercial growth, on and not forever, a moratorium on new residential development for 4 or 5 years." I mean, I just didn't not think that that was a crazy thing to ask, but that was really one that it shows you like, oh, this is how politics can be played because you have like it took me what, 90 seconds to explain that, and I was trying to be fast about it. It takes somebody else 10 seconds to say Matt hates people having water. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And that's
Yep.
politics.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And people will
people
misconstrue
will
that.
do that.
And moratoriums send long-term messages to investment that
They do.
I very much disagree with the idea, but we're just going
And that's
to
fair.
put a pin in that right now.
That's okay. No, that's okay.
What's one county department that deserves more appreciation?
Oh man, I like so I this
There's
or
probably a
this
bunch that come
there's
to your
gonna be a
mind.
bunch that come to my mind here. So I'm gonna say one, the highway department is small and it people take it for granted. Look, our sheriff's department are awesome, right? Like you see these guys that do jujitsu with them. They're like, man, they look like a military unit. They're great. Our schools, everybody talks about. It's not that these aren't, they're great. Our EMS, but nobody even thinks about the highway department. The only time people think about the highway department is when they have brush that need to get picked up. And so I give them a shout out because
Yeah.
it's just something that the only time you notice a road is when there's a pothole. And these guys do a lot of work with not very much.
And an incredible attitude.
They're
Toby
they're
Ellis,
they're
for sure.
they're good people.
Okay. 10 words or less. What describes good leadership? I was going to say 1 word or less, but
Making hard decisions and owning them.
excellent. What gives you hope for Sumner County's future? That's your last question.
We're in a good spot. Like, we're in a good spot. And I know that's weird, but like, we're in a good spot based on like our proximity to things that are at the end of the day, our state. We have all these things that we can argue about, but our state is doing a good job. It's doing a good job of bringing strong things that help us grow and not doing really dumb things. And so is the county. Like we're arguing over what really is our, you and I aren't here talking about, hey, we're going to have to cut the pension.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's happening in a lot of places. And so we have, good things happening here, and we also have good people here. And I don't mean just like people in government. I just mean like people.
Yeah.
Like people, like, when a storm comes through, you just see people chopping up wood and helping. So
Right.
we have a good spot.
I love it. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing candidly, going in the weeds.
Probably too much.
Haven't had too many Game of Thrones references,
No, there
but
you
that will altogether be part of the What did I call this episode?
Oh, yeah, Matt makes everybody
Matt
mad.
makes everyone mad.
That's right.
I'm kidding.
That's right.
Thanks for coming. It was a good time to
Thank you.
visit.
And thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Till next time.